Welcome to the Around the Sun podcast. I'm your host, Keith Gill, Commissioner of the Sun Belt Conference. In conjunction with the 50th anniversary of Title IX, we're recognizing some of the pioneers and trailblazers of women's athletics at current Sun Belt Conference institution. Today, our special guest is Yvette Girouard. Yvette is one of the most accomplished softball coaches in NCAA Division I history. She competed for the University of Louisiana as a volleyball student athlete from 1972 to 1975. Yvette later started the softball program at Louisiana in 1981, winning more than 750 games with the Ragin Cajuns. In 2001, she was named the head coach at LSU, winning 526 games for LSU. Her teams made 5 Women's College World Series appearances, and she is one of only 3 coaches to take 2 different teams to the Women's College World Series. Yvette is a member of the Louisiana Athletics Hall of Fame, and the Ragin Cajuns now play at Yvette Girouard Field. Yvette, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. This is a pleasure, and I'm always willing and ready to talk about women's athletics and especially softball in the state of Louisiana.
Well, that's actually a perfect segue. You grew up in Broussard, small town in Louisiana. At the time, there weren't really a lot of opportunities for girls to play organized sports until you made it to high school. Talk about your journey to playing organized sports when there just weren't a lot of opportunities available to you.
Well, I was a pre-Title IX baby, obviously, but small town, town of 2,000. Of course, it's grown considerably now, but no, girls were not allowed to play. And I was a baseball field rat, not a gym rat, but a field rat. My dad was a big baseball man. He played semi-pro ball, and we went to Houston every summer to watch what was then the Colt 45s and then the Astros. But he would watch baseball all the time, and I was born pretty much a tomboy. Okay. Today, with today's standards, you're just an athlete now. That tomboy word's kind of going by the wayside, which is good. But anyway, I played baseball from morning to night across the street in an open field with all my neighborhood buddies. And when it got to T-ball, all the little boys said, well, where's Yvette? She's the best player on the team. Where is she? But no, I wasn't allowed to play, and didn't play anything until I got to high school. And the only sport was volleyball. And I played volleyball there for 4 years. And then when I got to then University of Southwestern Louisiana, I walked on to the volleyball team and never got a scholarship because we didn't have any then.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So that's one of the questions I wanted to have for you is you played volleyball in college, but yet you became a softball coach. And I guess that must be that influence of baseball. The diamond sports kind of never really left you?
Correct. I played slow pitch softball when I was 18 years old. And got on a really good travel ball team. We went to state, nationals. We won state a bunch of times, but it was slow pitch. And I never played the game of fast pitch softball because it just wasn't in our area. First time I ever saw the game was I was probably about 19 years old, and I saw men playing in a league in Lafayette and thought, wow, that's cool. And so when I got out of college, they were starting the softball program in the parish of Lafayette Parish. I was hired at Lafayette High School, and I became the assistant volleyball coach and the head softball coach. And I just kind of coached it like I thought baseball was played because I didn't know anything about the game of fast pitch. And when you think about it, it's really just the pitching that's different. So that's how I got my beginning.
Okay, and 1,200 wins, more than 1,200 wins later. Obviously, that sounds like a pretty good approach. And you started the softball program at Lafayette High School. You also started the softball program at Louisiana. And you, we'll just talk a little bit about that, just the challenges, how difficult it was, and then obviously how fulfilling it was because, you know, what you started at Louisiana has turned into one of the best softball programs in the country.
Yeah, it's a monster. But starting at Lafayette High, again, there was no field. I remember, this is a good Title IX story. I watched a dump truck come in with sand and dirt for the baseball field. And I went up to the gentleman who was the school board affiliate who was delivering the sand and dirt to the baseball field. And I asked where was ours, and he said, "We'll have to see how hard you work before we give you dirt and sand."
Oh my gosh.
So can you imagine saying that today? But so I decided I was going to show him how hard I could work. I remember tilling the infield at Lafayette High School with a rented tiller, a garden tiller. Needless to say, I couldn't use my arms for about 2 weeks after that. So it was crazy beginnings, but that's how it started. And from then on, it just became a mission of always trying to make a no answer a yes answer. Mm-hmm. And so I was determined to outwork everyone.
And the interesting thing about that story is people may not know that for the first 10 years you were the coach at Lafayette, you were part-time. So you're tilling the field, your arms are, all not working, and you've got another job that you've got to do as well in addition to that. So talk about how you kind of balanced and were able to create such an unbelievable program as a part-time coach.
Well, I actually taught and coached for 4 years, and I left it to join my family's restaurant, which is still in business today, 57 years later. And when I got there, University of Louisiana decided they were going to have a softball program. And they came to me and said, "Okay, we don't have any scholarships, you don't have a budget, but we want you to start the program. And we don't have a field to play on, but we want you to start the program." And I immediately said, "And you expect me to win?" And of course, the answer was yes. So I did that for the first year. We didn't have a field. We went to 5 different city parks. They finally made us a makeshift field that had chicken wire backstop, and the fence was like a something you'd use in your garden, and there was intramural softball on the side of us, and people would just step over the fence and come get their ball on our field. So it was wild. But anyway, I digress. So we did that. I did that for 10 years. Our team was ranked 7th in the country. And people would call me at the restaurant to schedule and or do whatever. And they'd always say, "Where are you?" And, and then they'd ask if we delivered. But of course, you're talking about the 80s and 90s. So of course we didn't deliver. But finally, and there were times where it was just so much. But of course, my parents and my family, they bent over backwards to help me succeed. And my mom finally said, "You don't belong in the restaurant business. You belong on that field all day long." So I finally convinced the university to hire me full-time after 10 years. And, I just got so lucky in recruiting. And I mean, my mom, let me go back a minute here. My mom actually made our first uniforms. They were hand-me-down basketball warm-ups, and they were getting rid of them. And I thought these would make great softball pants. So my mom fixed them, adjusted them, but there's the story. I had a lot of help, and of course, my parents played a huge part in my success.
Yeah. So and it's interesting listening to you talk about the field. It must bring, obviously, to have a field named after you must bring immense pride. But when you think about where you started with no field, and when you look at where the Cajuns play right now in really a Mecca, Taj Mahal to softball, how does that make you feel? And it's named after you. I mean, how does that make you feel?
Well, I almost fainted. I never thought that day would come. But it's an incredible feeling. Where that field stands now, again, another story. That used to be the dairy farm at Louisiana. And
Oh, wow.
I remember them telling me that's where the field would be constructed when they finally, decided we were going to actually build a softball field. There was no Cajun Dome Boulevard, so there was no access to the field. I walked across the practice football field. There was a barbed wire separating me and some giant cows and bulls. And I thought, what the heck? Why are they hiding us back here? Well, they constructed a road right on the side. The Health and Physical Education Center came, and it's just an incredible setting. It's tucked into that corner, so the balls fly out pretty frequently there, and it had the best soil on the campus, being the dairy farm once upon a time. So
wow.
we never had trouble growing grass on that field.
Yeah, it was pre-fertilized, so that's always a nice place to be. So
you got it.
And so talk about, when you think about that evolution, because in some ways the evolution of Yvette Girouard Field or stadium, I should say, is really kind of a metaphor for Title IX. And so, you kind of were a student athlete kind of when that law was signed into law, when that law was kind of passed and signed into law. Talk about how that has created opportunities for women and what that has done for you and for others following behind you.
Well, okay, so that first year we had no scholarships. The second year they gave me a half. We were ranked 7th in the country, and we had like 7 scholarships. So it took us forever to get to the limit, which is 12 now. But just incredible. It's kind of gone beyond my imagination of what it could be, but in a way it's not, because I always challenge people in Lafayette to give us a chance to come to a game one time and see if they didn't get hooked, because it's such a fast-paced game. You're right on top of the action. You see the girls' faces. There's cheering. There's, it's just, and I'm a baseball girl, but, it's slow and boring. So,
yeah.
And this game's not. So we just captured the imagination of Lafayette. It became, and the park is named after Alfred Lamson, who was the most influential person to help us spearhead the program. He was a very influential oil man in town, tremendous personality, and he got so many other people to buy into our program and come to our games. It became an event. It became, you needed to be there. You wanted to be there. Everybody in town was starting to come to our games and loved it. So to see that, and to see now that, women's softball on the Women's College World Series, outdraws Major League Baseball during that time for viewership. And, this is a sport that people just love. Men, know the game because it's like baseball. Women love it. And, and one of my greatest happiness in all of this is that little girls can look up to big girls now. When I was growing up, I was looking up to, I'll show my age, Willie Mays, Mickey Mantle, Roger Maris, and little girls now can look up to all of the studs that are playing at, in Lafayette. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and you really have been a pioneer for Sunbelt softball, because last year we got 4 teams in the NCAA tournament, so that the most in our history, and the sport kind of just continues to grow, certainly in this region and for this conference, and we certainly have your efforts to kind of thank for that, getting it kick-started. So thank you very much.
Well, you're quite welcome. It was a labor of love for me.
Yeah, so now you're on the broadcast side, so you do work for ESPN. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that keeps you close to the game? And
well, I think you just hit the nail on the head. It keeps me close to the game. The coaches involved, I still know most of them. Beth Tureen at LSU, and of course Jerry Glasgow at UL could not be kinder to me. Will always try and help me, always accommodating, always welcome me, but I love it, because at the end of the day, it's no longer my fault.
Yeah, I got to think that, taking the pressure off a little bit is got to be really helpful. So, well, as we're wrapping up, can you just talk a little bit about when you first took the job at Louisiana to now you see what that program is? What has that just meant to you, and just how proud are you? Because it's been quite a transformation.
Well, that after that first year, I wanted to quit because we didn't have anything. It was such an uphill battle. And my mom is the one that said, "Oh no, you're not quitting. You don't belong in this restaurant. You get frustrated with my customers." She said, you need to be in charge like a coach. So she knew me too well. To go from there to what there is now is just incredible. I mean, the stands are full. The girls have every opportunity now, and that's what we all fought for at the beginning. Being told at the beginning you can't have dirt and sand, to the Taj Mahals that they are playing in now. Of course, Lamson Park, Yvette Girouard Field is as good as it gets in the country. And the fans, you can't buy the fans that we have in Lafayette. It's just an incredible experience for anybody that walks in that gate.
Yeah, well, that's outstanding. Well, once again, I do want to thank you for your accomplishments. Really, think about Ragin Cajuns softball and hearing the story about where it was and all that you did to get it to the point that it is today. So thank you so much for joining us today. Really enjoyed hearing your story, enjoyed visiting with you, and certainly appreciate all the contributions that you've made to sports generally and in particular softball. So
thank you, and I'm honored that I was chosen. Fun to talk about.
Yeah, it's so good to visit with you as well. So next time I'm on campus, I'll have a better sense of the history of the field and knowing that it was a dairy farm and some of those things. So thank you so much for your time.
You're quite welcome.
All right, I'm Keith Gill, and this has been the Around the Sun podcast.